Well, good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome once again to the Hager-Hershey-Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. Rex Brewer along with Dane Fuelling tonight. And Dane, last week the place was packed. Tonight the place is not. Our two favorite guests just made it in just in time to start the show. But I see from looking at the schedule, you got a big show on hand for tonight. Tell us what you got planned for tonight.
Yeah, well, everybody's exhausted from Friday night and more action on Saturday. I know I'm still reeling from a couple of football games and just sort of trying to put it all in perspective for the website's purposes. Kind of a historic year. It's fun. It's exciting. These guys that we're watching on Friday nights are the same guys that we're going to be talking about on Saturday mornings and Saturday afternoons, and some of the biggest stars that the names that we call over and over and over again on Friday nights for football are the same ones that we'll be calling pins for later on in the season. And it's not like we don't have experience with this. We've been doing this for, it seems like 5 years now. We've been dealing with this. We know what Coach Currie is going to say later on about waiting for the season to start. Adams Central doesn't even have a real schedule because they know where they're going to be football-wise. What would they do if they lost first week of sectional, and they'd go 6 weeks without having a wrestling match? But that's the way it goes.
Half those guys wouldn't still be at wrestling practice. They still think they're still playing football. But, we've been to the state finals for AC 3 years in a row. South Adams the year before that. And you kind of segue, you said stars on the wrestling. One thing we got to talk about, this Starfire football team. Grant's our good buddy, and I tell you what, his season didn't go the way he wanted it to during the ACAC, but I tell you what, the ACAC's gotten tougher and tougher, and when he gets in those 1A classes, he beat a couple of really good teams last week, and then this week he was favored to win, and I tell you what, he's got to go up against North Judson, but I tell you what, just go out there and play like he's been playing. He's got a good chance.
Coach Mosier was interested in joining us tonight until he heard what time the show was. He said they had their North Judson coaches meeting tonight, so they're currently working on that and coming up with a game plan. And from what we've seen from the results, they're gonna need one, because that North Judson team kind of looks like a team that is ready for some revenge on Adams County.
Yeah, I know that Adams Central has put a spanking on the last 2, maybe 3 years in a row. We've sent people up there, but I tell you what, you saw your first Adams Central football game. I've seen them numerous times throughout the season, and I tell you what, that football team, once they get rolling, they can score some points. And I think some of those teams they play, you think they're in the game, and next thing you know, they're 2 touchdowns behind. Next thing you know, it's a run clock.
Yeah, and there's a couple of those guys. I think about the basketball team, which I watch a lot for Adams Central. I'm thinking, how does Coach Currie not got them on a wrestling team? A couple of those guys. So maybe we'll ask him about that. But you and I also had a chance to see the Belmont Wrestle-Offs on Wednesday. Blessed with another great night of weather, now 3 years in a row that Coach Myers has been able to pull that one off. And, this Belmont team this year is a little bit thin when it comes to numbers, but I really like the way that the lineup is sort of coming together. Now, one thing that I didn't necessarily expect is we got a couple of parents from the Belmont wrestler that just walked in, but I didn't necessarily expect them to be as high as they are weight-wise. So I think if you're looking at that Belmont lineup maybe on Friday or even at Goshen after Thanksgiving, I think you are looking at the old school, what used to be pretty standard for a lot of teams, just that mid-December shift down.
Yep.
I do think you're going to see that for almost the entire team, because a lot of those guys, the weight that I saw them wrestling off at, I thought, that's not where I thought I was going to see them long term. We did see 5 or 6 forfeits during Wednesday's wrestle-offs, but we saw some good matches. We saw some JV guys who are ready to get some mat time. There's still a few missing pieces there, a couple of guys who had missed some practice, some injuries. But I think overall, Coach Myers has no fear of having a forfeit in the lineup. I don't think he has any true fear of really having an absolute, 3-25 guy.
Yeah.
Right? I think he's got a solid lineup with his best guys, his 5 leaders, as he talked about on Wednesday. I know I heard him talking about that with you. His best guys, the guys that are on the calendar, on the poster, are his team captains, and they're guys with the most returning wins and the most experience. But Coach Myers kind of talked about that as a positive. Our guys who are the most experienced are the ones who are our leaders. and they're going to lead by example, and they're going to push some of those guys. And there's also some guys on that team that I think in previous years you would have expected them maybe to not be on the team. Yeah. There's some guys in there who are showing up to practice every day without a promise of some varsity matches, but still putting in the work. And I think if you talk to Coach Myers and Coach Ferrote specifically, they would tell you that this team has a really positive attitude. And there are very few negatives coming out of that room day to day.
Well, I'll tell you what, I saw some freshmen line up, because I don't go and watch junior high matches. I don't see some of those kids coming up. I saw some kids that had some very promising matches, some really good looks from some of those young guys. That Burkholder kid at 20, that kid could be a 20-25 match winner for you this season as a freshman. Looked really solid. He gave Curtis a pretty decent match when he came up, wrestled an exhibition. I mean, that was a pretty good match. He's really high on Manley at 57 as a freshman. He's got Gabe that's been wrestling since he was in diapers. I mean, that kid's going to give you, 25 wins easy. And then even though he's coming in as a freshman at like 32, but I tell you what, he's got some solid kids in there that have not been in the lineup before. That, I mean, it's going to be surprising, interesting to watch.
Yeah, and the freshman class especially, as they work their way into the lineup and figure out exactly where they land weight-wise, I do think they kind of feed off of each other. And they've already, obviously undergone some adversity here in the first couple of weeks of the season, and I think that's done nothing but draw them closer together. And as the team gets back to a normal routine after everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks, they get through Friday, they get a match under their belts. I do expect a Belmont victory on Friday against Wawasee. You head up to Snyder the following Tuesday, and then you see what happens at Goshen. This team is going to mature a ton over the next 2 weeks from where they are right now to where they're going to be that Sunday after Thanksgiving when they've got 12 bouts on their record.
I'll tell you what, that was a good lead in here for our weigh-in section. Speaking of weigh-ins, we're trying to get those kids down to weight. Let's take a break here and send it back to studio. Steve Rouse running the board for us, and we'll be back with our first guest on the phone here right after this on WZBD.
Shop local. It's a phrase we hear all the time, but for the staff and family at Package Liquors, it means something extra. Package, with locations in Decatur, Monroe, Berne, and Markle, is a local family-owned business that has been serving local communities for decades. We take your support and patronage and return it by supporting local athletes on WZBD and donating to different organizations across Adams County. The next time you're deciding where to shop local. Shop at Package. It's where your friends shop.
The staff at Haggard, Hershey, and Zelt Funeral Home is honored to serve the community we love and live in. Locally owned and operated by Ryan Hershey and Eric Zelt, we understand that each family we serve and each life lived tells a unique story. Our goal is to offer comfort, care, and dignity to all who entrust their loved ones to our care. We are proud to call Adams County our home and look forward to serving you for generations to come.
Welcome back once again to the Haggard Hershey High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. And Dane, I went back to my old standby this week. I went with the Cuban and some tots, and you switched it up. The turkey melt you weren't feeling turkey melt. That's why I had a big old plate of nachos over there, and That's
gone. What I needed.
They were gone.
That's what I needed. I needed to get away from the sandwich and get me some nachos. So we are in football mode here for the next 15 minutes, and while you dial up our man here, he says he's ready to go, we will tell you a little bit about where we're going to be football-wise. Adams Central will be at Andrean up in Maryville. That'll be an 8 o'clock start for us back here at home, and South Adams will be at North Judson. Right now the plan is I'm going to stay home, and I'm going to do the Belmont and Wawasee match. We will have live pre-match coverage and as much coverage as we can possibly bring you before you guys go on air. Hopefully that'll be a couple of varsity matches, but if you're listening now and you're a Belmont wrestling fan, you can listen on the radio for as long as we can stay on the air, and then the rest of the match will be on YouTube, and we'll switch over to football, and we'll have both games for you. And a reminder just for those who are football fans, it's a $12 streaming fee this week for semi-state. WZBD, free.
Really? Yeah, you get in your car, turn the radio on, it doesn't cost you a dime.
Doesn't cost you a dime. Huh. So the Adams Central game will be on air, and the South Adams game will be available on YouTube, and that'll be simultaneous with the wrestling. And if you're a Purdue football fan and you're wondering about Michigan State, you really should find a hobby because at this point in the year, at 1-9,
Look at the face on your father. He's like,
at 1-9,
it's like you stole his lunch.
there's so many other things to do on Friday night than worry about Purdue football. Maybe they'll pull off the upset this week. I don't know.
Or maybe not.
Maybe not. But we're going to give Greg Rakestraw a call here. He was at a football game on Friday, and he was at a football game yesterday, and another one today.
Hello?
How are we doing?
Hey, is this Domino's? I'd like to order a large pepperoni, please.
Yeah, please send that my way. Now, the delivery fee from your place to mine might be significant.
Greg, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
We're fine.
Hey, Greg, this is Dane here. Colts got a win today, and we were talking football. Tell us a little bit about what game you were at on Friday.
So Friday night was Lawrence North and Brownsburg, which was kind of my second instant classic of the four that I have had so far this postseason. It was a one-score game the entire time. LN led most of the way, not all of it, but frankly had two or three chances to make it a two-score lead and can never capitalize on it. And Brownsburg, who came from 28 back the week before to beat Ben Davis, comes from 7 down in the final 2 minutes, scores with 13 seconds left to go, and elects to go for 2 and got it. And they win 22-21, and Brownsburg will be a semi-state team for the first time in their 6A existence, the first time since they were the 4A champs back in 1985.
I don't know how you do it, Greg. All we do is cover Adams Central games, and all we get is running clock. It's not a whole lot of fun.
Have you guys? You remember the movie Pleasantville? Does that strike a bell for you guys?
Yes.
Where they won every game. That's you guys as the voice of the Adams Central Jets. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Now, South Adams has had a great run, too, and we were just talking about them and where they are in the season and taking on North Judson. But it's been a heck of a run for Adams County teams here this football season, especially the postseason, especially now with the two of them split between 2A and 1A.
And now the big question is I haven't looked at the brackets. I know whom they are playing. The big question is, where are they playing? Do either of you have to go to Maryville or North Judson in 5 days?
Yes, Rex Brewer has to drive 2 hours and 52 minutes west.
It's worth it, though.
They are both.
But again, saying 252 doesn't tell me which one you're going to, so who's going where?
They're both away. Rex is going to Maryville, and our buddy Ed Thurman, who I'm sure you know, is headed up to North Judson. I get the tough assignment of staying home and doing the wrestling match for Belmont and Wawasee.
Okay, no travel for you. I get that. Well, I can tell you that the address on which to find Andrean is very easy because it is built into their nickname. They are the 59ers, and the address of Andrean High School is 5959 Broadway in Maryville, so you can't miss it.
So, Greg, once I hit 30, I go straight and I turn right once, and I'm there.
Stay on I think Broadway is State Road 53 by the time you get there, so I think you're spot on.
Well, Greg, we're excited about the start of the boys' wrestling season, and I know you were at Evansville last year, but we're certainly excited that things are moving back to Indianapolis for this coming February.
Of course, and obviously that's a much farther drive than 2 hours and 52 minutes for you guys. And it was a one-time thing. There was no way around that with the, with the NBA All-Star Weekend going to be in Indianapolis, and so the boys wrestling. It was there was kind of opportunities in Fort Wayne and Evansville. To be blunt, the folks at Evansville were much more open to say, you know what, we'll make sure we block this weekend off. Folks in Fort Wayne were kind of like, well, the Comets might be playing, and that was kind of all the IHSA needed to hear. But the destination of choice is obviously Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and so yes, it'll be going back there as of February the 22nd is when the wrestling state finals will take place, and good Lord willing, I'll be there Matt's side to hang out with you fellas.
So, Greg, this is Rex. Dane and I had no complaints with the hospitality we had in Evansville. I thought the Evansville people did a wonderful job of putting that together. Every once in a while, Dane and I like a good road trip, but we spent the whole weekend down there. I mean, we had a blast. We'll be glad to be back in our old familiar stomping grounds in Indianapolis, but I have no complaints other than the weather was way colder than everybody thought it would be.
We picked the one day of a significant snow event in central Indiana, and it was that Friday night, which obviously had an impact on the Friday night crowd. I know there was unfortunately a bit of a Ticketmaster snafu that, frankly, kind of prevented folks from buying as many seats. I know the folks in the IHSAA had hoped for a bit of a larger crowd, but again, the city of Evansville knew that this was going to be a one-off, and this was their one chance. And because, frankly, state finals are typically centrally located, you don't have them that far north or south on a regular basis. So the folks of Evansville absolutely did their best and put on a good show. But again, I think a lot of folks, especially from the northern part of the state, are much happier about going to Indianapolis.
Now, Greg, of course, this year was something we've already talked about on our show in the first couple weeks, but the girls are officially sanctioned as part of the IHSAA, and they'll have their first true IHSAA-sanctioned state finals in January. Is that something that you're following, that you're maybe going to be present for? What's your thoughts on that?
As of now, I will not be present for it. We, as in my day job at ISC, we actually produced the wrestling state finals last year because they were not at Gamebridge. We will be producing the ones in January. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say where the potential destination is going to be for that, or as to what the official day of the state championship is going to be.
No, you're good. We know. Robert was on 2 weeks ago and told us, so you're good.
So, Indiana, or now the Corteva Coliseum, Friday, January 17th. So we'll be at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. I think the goal is to have a few more female voices for the broadcast for the state finals. So I will go if asked, but if not, I'll be there in spirit because literally, boys, I live 20 minutes away from the Coliseum.
Well, you could always
blocks away from the Coliseum.
You could always join us. We could be a 3-man crew that night. You could join WZBD for an evening.
I could now. As of now, I'll be at the Marion County boys basketball semifinals that night. Maybe I might make the day session.
And that is a great tournament, the Marion County boys basketball tournament. Hey, before we let you go, we have to put a little plug in. I don't know if you were an AP voter for the girls basketball, but this Belmont team that we've got here in Decatur this year has a group of 5 or 6 freshmen that are outstanding, along with the senior leader in Emily Blakey and her sisters who are twins who are freshmen. They got 2 wins so far this year, and this could be the year that Belmont pulls the upset on Norwell and makes a deep tournament run.
I appreciate the intel. I am technically not an AP voter for the girls. I am for the boys, but I will pass along to the powers that be. And what you have just done about 2 months out from the girls' selection show is given me my first nugget of prep. I usually prep that about 2 weeks out, so thanks for me off to a great start. That is always very appreciated.
How do you keep track of all those little nuggets? It blows my mind. Are they written down, or do you have them on a spreadsheet?
Combination of both. It seems like the girls' show, sometimes I will type them. My handwriting is really bad. My dad thought he was getting a doctor back in the day, and obviously I disappointed him on that front. So I try to type as best I can, so that it is obviously much easier for me to recall them, knowing that I really have, in the way that the science, that's probably saying it way too strong and giving myself too much credit, the methodology, there we go, for how I do those pairing shows as the analyst, sitting next to Bob, is that basically we have 8.5-minute segments. We take a break, kind of on the fives, during each hour of the show. And so if it's 8.5-minute segments and it's 8 sectionals at a time, we have a minute on each sectional. So if Bob has 30 seconds to read the pairings, I have 30 seconds to say something of intelligence about the sectional. So normally it's trying to have 2 or 3 specific points about teams, players, coaches, matchup. So if I have a paragraph on all 64 sectionals, that usually gets us through 2 hours of radio. There you go. That is how the sausage is made for the pairing shows.
So Greg, I don't know where you had supper at, but a plate of nachos just landed in front of Dane's mom here that's about the size of a trash can lid. So you're missing out on some wonderful nachos up here. I had the Cuban tonight, and it was wonderful. So I know that it's a long drive for you, but maybe you just understand that the food here is really good.
Well, it's good to know. Next time I was actually up that way, passing by Wednesday on Thursday on my way to and from Detroit. So next time I'm in that direction, I know to order the nachos. Thank you very much.
You'll have to make it up here for a show sometime. You'll have to do our Team State reveal show with us one of these years in January. We have 2 different shows where we reveal the last teams that get voted in, and then the pairing show right before that week of Team State.
Very nice. I will do my best.
Last year that was in Rex Brewer's basement because we couldn't get the double eagle that night. So, Greg, it's been great talking to you, and we will look for you down the road. And Indianapolis is going to be a home ground for us again for the state finals, and we all look forward to that.
All right, thank you, fellas. Anytime. Happy to hop on with you.
Take care. That was Greg Rakestraw from the.
It's not a tough. I mean, it's not an easy job to do what he does, because it is true. You get into boys basketball, girls basketball, even football. Paul Condrey is so knowledgeable on everything when it comes to high school football. But it's not just you got to be able to pronounce every high school in Indiana. And his knowledge of school nicknames and school mascots, along with just the general history of things, that's not easy. Even if you take the time to compile all that information, to be able to whip it out like that is impressive.
Have you ever seen that guy on Instagram where his buddy quizzes him and he has all the Indiana names of schools of Indiana
It's like Tony
mascots?
G.
Yeah.
Tony G always knew everybody's nicknames all the time, and every consolidation school that fed into it at one point.
That was even schools that had been out of business for 40 years. Tony knew what their mascot names were. Well, they were the Punk Masters, or something.
No, looking forward to heading back down to Indianapolis.
Twice.
We definitely missed it. And the fact that the girls' state finals are going to be at the Pepsi Coliseum and centrally located and not at a high school that's currently in session with school, all of those things, it's going to be a time. You driving or am I driving? Girls' state finals. We'll take
I usually drive.
Well, we take the Mustang again.
Nah,
No.
Mustang's out of commission.
That's not for January's.
The owner of the Mustang is in Florida, so we'll either take the truck or the Buick. We'll take the grandpa car.
We won't be flying, is what you're saying?
Yeah, we
from
won't.
From FWA to IND.
Scooter just landed. But with that first section has ended, first period A is done. Let's send it back to studio. Steve Rouse running the board for us. And we're back with first period B right after this on WZBD.
Wygand Construction in Fort Wayne is building landmarks that impact the lives and communities we serve. At Wygand, we believe that our most important responsibility as a building contractor and construction company is to stand by our commitments to our clients and to our community. That's why we believe in supporting high school athletics, where our local teenagers show their commitments to their teammates, their coaches, their schools, and their communities. Wygand Construction. Trust. Well built.
DDD Maintenance and Repair, owned and operated by Shane Reynolds, has your local professionals for heavy-duty truck and diesel engine repair. DDD Maintenance and Repair also offers full-service sand and glass blasting for your surface restoration projects. Whether it's getting your heavy-duty truck and diesel engine running like new or sandblasting your project to look like new, we have a blast renewing the past. Give Shane and the guys a call at 260-223-5442. That's DDD Maintenance and Repair.
Welcome back once again to the Hager Hershey High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. Now we've made our way to first period at B. And what we got in store for this segment, Dane?
Well, I think we're going to take a little bit deeper look into that Belmont lineup and talk a little bit about Friday. Once again, if you are listening to us and you're a wrestling fan and your focus on Friday is going to be on our first boys wrestling dual meet of the season, we will be on the air as early as we can get on the air, and we will bring you as much of that match as possible before we flip the switch over to you up in another time zone, which is kind of wild. You know, was it last year the Cubs played in Japan or somewhere, and the year before the Colts played in Germany? It feels a little bit different, but it should be a good day of sports coverage on Friday. Of course, you'll also be able to hear the South Adams football game on our YouTube channel. And then we'll try to catch you up on Purdue football and Purdue basketball, girls basketball, all of those types of things on Saturday. But we did see the Belmont Wrestle-Offs on Wednesday. I thought it was a good crowd. People came out, wanted to see what this freshman class looked like, wanted a chance to see what some of these guys who had good seasons with last year. And looking at the Belmont lineup, they got 6 or 7 guys who had 25 wins last year. And I think at a school, Belmont or Adams Central or South Adams size, if you could put 7 guys in the lineup who have varsity experience, who've advanced a weekend out of the state tournament and have won 20 to 25 matches, you can fill in the rest with guys that you're trying to bring along. And anything beyond that really anymore becomes exceptional with the way high school wrestling has developed.
You know, another guy that I was really impressed with, we didn't get to see a lot of wrestling from him, but I had a good conversation with him at the girls' basketball game the night before and then at the wrestle-off itself. But the X-Man was looking really big. I mean, he is going to surprise a lot of people here tonight. And I'm not just saying that because his parents made it to the show tonight. But I tell you what, he's a wonderful young man. I tell you what, he is so strong. People just don't realize how strong that kid is. You know, Nick Krause, our friend up at Garrett, told me that he came up and wrestled some tournaments with him. He said the Garrett guys were going, this dude is a monster.
And he really enjoyed. He got invited to play in kind of an all-star game for high school soccer players for juniors. He played for the North team, and he's a goalie, if you don't know that, for the soccer team in the fall, but absolutely loved it. And he's the kind of kid who just loves being around people and interacting with people. And, we were talking about team captains earlier and how positive the room is right now, and I think he's a big part of it. And, where he falls in the lineup and what his success is this year, I think is one of the real storylines for Belmont this year, and something that for anybody who's positive and excited about Belmont wrestling this year, I think when you talk about Xavier Palacios, the sky's the limit as far as what he can achieve and the sort of things that, he's never out of a match. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most exciting things. Those are the kinds of kids that you really like watching because he has the ability to come back in the third period with a fall, with a cradle. He has the chance to score, and with the new scoring rules, even more. And that's one thing that maybe we should talk about. Maybe we'll wait till Coach Currie comes on here in the next segment, but it was our first real look. I know you had the girls' match, but a lot of those matches were first period, and they were done, and you didn't really have a chance to get into the deeper scoring strategy. But we did see it last Wednesday downtown outside that there are going to be some things that we're really going to have to get used to, even in calling matches, when we try to portray to people, this one's over, this one's safe, like he only needs to do this to get there. All of those things have changed for everybody, not just the wrestlers or the coaches, the fans, announcers too.
We had a match where Landon Rich gets taken down to a headlock. He's down 7-0. He's down 7-0, and he battles his way back. And then, I thought that match was over. He battles his way back and wins the spot. But, just like that, you get caught in a headlock, you're down 7-0. It's not 5-0 anymore. It's 7-0. Them extra 2 points are really hard to come back on. And the scoring really can add up fast with that 2, 3, or 4.
And I think it's probably worth saying, and I know this is a difficult thing to say, but like Landon Rich has been involved with the Rubel family for several years, and I know he's had a really tough time dealing with the loss of Paul. And I was just really proud of the way he wrestled, because I think there was a time this fall where he wasn't sure whether he wanted to continue with the team. And to see him fight back from that, to win that varsity spot, I think that was a really cool moment, and maybe the moment that I'll take away the most from Wednesday.
And he was wrestling Isaiah Herman. Isaiah Herman won a match before that and gave Rich all he wanted. I mean, and Herman's a guy that you just didn't even hear much about on JV last year, and he's a guy I know that's going to step in and get some varsity wins for Tim.
Yeah, he's a really cool story too. If you don't know him, maybe we'll have a chance to talk about him later on in the year. Wasn't at the first practice for Coach Myers, and Coach Myers talked him back out on the team. Played a lot of football this fall, and somebody who's going to contribute, and somebody that I think later in the year maybe get some varsity matches. I know Coach Myers wants to see that lineup kind of hold through Goshen, but Isaiah was one of those guys last year. Stepped in. The first varsity match he got to wrestle was at Mishawaka, and he wrestled twice on that first day of Mishawaka and got the opportunity. So, and I'm sure Coach Currie will talk about this too. You've got to be able to convey to your kids that if you don't win that varsity spot, it doesn't mean that those are the only 14 guys who are going to wrestle varsity the whole year. We need 17 guys, 20 guys, 21 guys who are ready to wrestle varsity at any moment because, Saturdays have gotten tougher. Now you're wrestling 6 times on a Saturday for the ACAC duels. You've got the 32-team tournaments. You've got Coach Curry's teams going to Lafayette Jeff. They're going to wrestle, 10 matches over 2 days. You're going to need guys to step up and have big matches. And those matches he'll say this in the next segment. The reason they're going to Lafayette Jeff is because those matches matter. They happen before they seed the 1A team state tournament, and they need to win those matches. They can't be losing some of those and putting themselves in a difficult situation where maybe they're facing the best team in the state. They want to be on the opposite side of the bracket. And all of a sudden, if you're having to wrestle them in the semifinals instead of the finals, it changes everything. So you need that depth, and you need those guys who are willing to continue to go to practice every day, even though they don't have the guarantee of a varsity spot, knowing that there's an opportunity that's going to come down later on.
Coach Curry's got to have those conversations with those guys and tell them, look, you're a dislocated elbow or a dislocated shoulder or a torn ACL away from being varsity. I mean, you have to be ready to go, and that could happen in the middle of one of those 10 dual meet weekends. It's like you drive up there thinking, okay, I'm just going to be here just to work out and roll around with somebody. And you could get 5-6 matches because the guy in front of you gets hurt. I mean, and that's what you have to be. It's like next man up. And you don't, we're talking 1A schools here. 1A schools, Belmont's a really small 2-3A school, but their rosters are just not that deep. And when you got a spot that goes down in injury, you got to put somebody in there.
And with the weight management system and everything, it's more and more important every year to have guys who are ready to step in and wrestle those matches. And with the team state format that we have now, if you think about back to 96 to 2012, it didn't matter at all what you did the entire year until you got to the postseason. Now it's the exact opposite. You get through team state and then you worry about the postseason type of thing. And so these things do matter. It does matter when South Adams wrestles Cowan. Here, that's a match that we have the first week of December, I think. And if they have to reschedule that, Coach Miller's got to figure out, okay, we can't let them reschedule this for January 15th because that's too late. We need to be able to beat Cowan to help our seeding. Thankfully for South Adams, they're in this year and they're not having to fight for that one of those final vote-in spots. But all of those things come into play, and the topic of our conversation tonight a lot is football, and of course football plays a big role in that.
Tony has the luxury of having some really good quality kids that are not on a football team. Grant doesn't. Most of Grant's football team is Miller's wrestling team.
Yeah.
And so he's going to have to wait for him.
Yeah, he's got just a handful of kids who, cross country or whatever it was in the fall. But you're right, there is a decent amount. And when we talked to Coach Wynn a couple weeks ago, he mentioned the fact that every football win is a setback for the wrestling team, and that it takes a community to support both of those teams. But they're certainly
they're just not used to it like Tony is.
Yes, it's something that they had not had to deal with for the last couple of years. I don't know whether we're going to see that South Adams Cowan match happen as it was originally intended. Of course, as we talk to Coach Currie here in the next segment, their schedule essentially has just been postponed indefinitely year after year because of the football success that they've had. They haven't wrestled before those team state duel or ACAC duels now for the last couple of years because they got tired of postponing them. So it's a very sort of backlaid schedule for them. And that creates all kinds of different problems as well because, as he'll say, you've got less practices when the time actually comes. You've got more matches. You've got more weigh-ins. And the more weigh-ins you have and the less practices you have, there's less time in there to work on the things that you need to work on to be ready for that postseason. And so it's all kind of a mix, and every team has to deal with it, at least in 1A and 2A. I'm not sure the Crown Point coach, I'm not sure if he's too concerned about what the football success means for them and their wrestling team. But I did hear today through the grapevine that one of the preseason number 1 guys in Indiana on the preseason mag got beaten wrestle-offs. So there are still some schools out there who have got some mean wrestle-offs going on.
The number 1 kid in his weight class.
That is the rumors. We'll have to see that.
So that means somebody from another state moved in and took his spot?
I don't know. Lost his wrestle-off. That's the way. I'm working on a project right now for the wrestling team, and you talk about, and Coach Currie's name was the one that was on there the most. I was cycling through some results from 93, 94, 95, 96. And, I'm not as old as you are.
I know that.
So some of these things that happened in 93 and 94 and 95 and 96, I know about, but I don't really truly remember. I was looking through some of those names and some of those varsity records, and it's like, man, this guy was really good. What happened to him? And then you look over, and it's like, oh, he faced Tony Currie in the semifinals at the sectional, and his season was over because that guy ended up wrestling underneath the lights.
I don't know if Tony remembers this because he was just a young pup back in high school, but Tyler Hershey was just here earlier. I was talking to him, and I said, well, I refereed in 93 and 94, and I've never seen myself refereeing. He goes, well, I got those 2 matches. So he gives me the tapes of the state finals, the CDs, and I burn a couple copies. I'm watching. I didn't realize my second year, I was assistant referee on Tony's match.
Well,
and I didn't know that. So
maybe we'll talk about that later on. Maybe there's still a beef that's underlying here.
I had no input in the match, but I tell you what, one thing that did happen is that was before they had standing reversal. Standing reversal is in play in that year. Tony gets a reversal going out of bounds on Pete Kinnick. He wins the match. He wins that match because he got an extra 2 points. But the standing reversal was not in play yet. So, shoulda, woulda, coulda, I guess.
And, the rule change is playing a significant role in this season, and it'll be interesting to hear what Coach Currie says about the way he's coaching guys when it comes to out of bounds, when it comes to, the 3-point takedown and the near fall situations. All of those things to come here in our next segment with the head coach of the Adams Central Flying Jets.
Well, I tell you what, one thing, maybe that's why those kids in college scramble so well on takedowns. You don't dare give up a 3-point takedown. And maybe coaches are telling the kids, you got to give everything you can. I mean, hit that last-minute switch or something and try and dive to a Grammy roll out of bounds, something. Don't give up that 3-point takedown because that 3-point takedown, I mean, it puts you so far behind that, I mean, it could end the match pretty quick.
Yeah, and a lot of people, casual fans that I've talked to about the rule changes in the last couple of weeks, I think they don't realize that the reversal is still worth 2 points. That the escape is still worth 1 point. It's not like everything got bumped up 1 point just to make us all feel better about the amount of points we were scoring. But it is an emphasis on scoring and wrestling on your feet, and that's what the rule makers wanted to see, and that's certainly what you're going to get.
Well, I knew about the 3-point takedown coming, but when I had a girls' match and Tyrone Wilson throws up that 4 near fall, I was like, what? Oh, I forgot. They put the 4-point near. Because before the 4-point near fall only came if you had somebody down for 5 and they got a bloody nose in the middle of it and give you a 4. And I looked and I was like, oh, wait, that's the new rule this year.
Yep, and you're going to have a little bit better eyesight in some of those perches that they put us in for matches because it's not going to be obvious. And there's so many times when we're seated there doing the radio and we can't see the actual physical scoreboard, and we're trying to discern whether that was 2-point near fall or 3-point. Now we got to discern whether it was a 4-point near fall. But I know one thing that I always appreciate about Coach Currie is the accuracy on his scorebook when it comes to track wrestling, with the help that he gets from Phil and from Brian Jordan and some other guys. And his managers are always on it when it comes to scorebook and those types of things. And they do a good job of keeping us up to date.
So my score sheet that night, every time I'd have a T2 and I go, oop, and I put another loop on the bottom for that 3. I changed the 2 takedown to a 3 takedown about 6 times before that match was over. So with that, our segment has ended. Let's send it back to the studio for a round of commercials, back with our first on-air guest here in the studio right now on WZBD.
Renowned around the Midwest for his skills and his creative abilities, Nate Bowers and the team at Bowers Paint Studio in Decatur work with a wide range of clients, from collision repair to custom paint jobs for classic cars and motorcycles. Located on Monroe Street on the west side of Decatur, Bowers is your place for body work too, whether it's getting your ride back on the road or finally getting that classic car, the paint job you've always wanted. Stop by or give Nate a call to put the best in the business to work for you.
Based out of the Indiana Tech Wrestling Facility, the Warrior Regional Training Center is an elite training center for youth wrestlers, high school wrestlers, and college and senior level athletes. Featuring a college coaching staff with a strong history of developing talent and producing results, Warrior RTC will give any wrestler quality training partners to push them to new levels in the state-of-the-art 25,000 square foot wrestling building. The training is affordable and private training is also available. Put Warrior RTC in your corner this season.
Welcome back to the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill for the Hager Hershey's Elk High School Wrestling Weekly. Once again, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill, and we're joined now by the coach of the Adams Central Flying Jets, Tony Currie. And Tony went with one of my favorites here at the Double Eagle, the big burger. I don't know, Jason just has really good beef. The burgers are always good. I tell you what, you can load them up with about anything you want, and that's one of my go-tos on Saturday night when they have the burger special. How you doing tonight, Tony?
Doing well, thanks, guys.
We know you've been busy not only following the Adams Central football Jets, but also your own son when it comes to his football career. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how TC's doing and how the football season's been going there?
Yeah, so Trev decided to play football at college, so he is at Hanover College, so way south down Madison, so we're on the river. So a lot of Saturdays driving 3.5 hours down there and 3.5 hours back. So the Hanover football teams finished second in their conference, so they picked up a bowl game. I think it's the first year Division III is doing this, where 4 of the D3 conference runner-ups are going to play over at Canton, Ohio, at the Hall of Fame stadium over there. And I think Hanover ends up playing Wabash College. So a couple Indiana teams playing over there, so that's next Saturday.
And what kind of position is Trevor playing this year?
Yeah, so he's tight end, playing on the offensive side. So on the depth chart, he's number 2, so he doesn't get a start yet. Gets in late in the games. He's on some special teams, kickoff, kick return.
They haven't let him boot an extra point or anything?
No, he hasn't kicked for him. They got a pretty good kicker, so they have a kid that all he does is kick, so he does a nice job.
So, Tony, when you get ready to head over to that game over at Canton, I have a son that has lived for about 7 years in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, so I've made that 3-hour and 15-minute trip over and over and over again. So when your kids get old enough and they move away, it's not going to see them in school. You're going to see them because they live there now. So I've had that trip lots of times.
Well, it's great to hear that Trevor's having success, and, of course, he was a big part of the team for the last 4 years, and you had a really nice senior class last year that brought you some great accolades. But the team you have returning this year is one to certainly be excited about, and I know we were alluding to it in the last segment, but maybe for the first time it feels like you actually have the bulk of your team currently practicing and not out on the football field. I mean, you still got a decent amount of guys, but it feels like for the first time in maybe this 4-year period, this is the most amount of wrestlers you've had in practice from the first day.
It's probably the first time in probably 7, 8, 9 years, because I was kind of thinking all the way back when Bubba was a freshman, they were playing at semi-state. That had been like Parker Bates, Logan Macklin's senior year. They made semi-state, got beat by Pioneer like over at Logansport. That's when they had Jack Kaiser quarterback. That kid was a stud.
When I played at Notre Dame.
Yeah, that kid was the real deal. So they've been to semi-state or further, I think all but 1 year after that. So, but yeah, this year we have several kids that are not playing football, so it's a little different in the wrestling rooms. You know, there's been a couple of the past years where it feels like a summer practice. It feels like, you know, I don't get too nervous until I start seeing results come in, and I'm thinking, man, we don't even have our team yet. I don't even, have my roster finalized yet. I don't have my weights. You kind of think, where kids are going to come when they get off the football field, but you're never quite sure till they get in the room and start stepping on the scales. So, Yeah, we'll be all right. We know how to. It's not new for us. We know how to handle it, and we'll be okay.
Now, this year, I think the first match that we have on our schedule, I think it's your first match, is actually the Tuesday before the ACAC duels. You are going to wrestle Norwell on that night as of right now.
As it says right now, yeah. Several of the last few years we had to postpone those first matches. And, we can't postpone the conference duels. It's just, you can't do that. So, but as it says right now, we have Norwell on that Tuesday, and then follow up with that Friday. Saturday. It's going to be Saturday for the conference duels. It used to be Friday, Saturday, but now with the we get 7 teams in the conference, so we can get that all done in one day now instead of the 2 days.
And I think a big advantage for you would be getting in a dual meet ahead of those ACAC duels. I mean, I feel like as a coach and knowing you over the last couple of years, like if you could get one under your belt before those really meaningful ACAC matches, that would always be a positive.
Yeah, because kids need to get a couple matches under their belt. They're never, you're not at peak right away. And the one year I think I counted, we had like 16 or 17 matches that we turned around from the conference duels to the conference tournament. So, you talk about depth. When we have those first super duel weekends, we don't have kids that are typically ready for 5 matches in one day. So we do a lot of substituting. So it's critical to have, multiple kids that can handle themselves at the varsity level, so we can, sub them in the lineup early in the season.
Now, do you feel like the rule change to 6 matches in a day benefits your program, or would you rather wrestle twice on Friday night and then wrestle 4 times with a break on Saturday?
For the conference duels, I'm kind of glad we have a 1 day, 6 in 1 day. It just helps with the travel, and sometimes you pick up at bye on Friday night, so
you wrestle one time.
You go down there, weigh in,
wrestle somebody that you're going to beat by 45 points.
Wrestle one duel, and then leave, and then come back and do it all again on Saturday.
Of course, you guys are hosting this year, right?
We are hosting the duels, yes. So in the ACAC tournaments at Woodland this year.
So just remember, the Wi-Fi password is...
I'm already on it. I'm already on it.
That is not the keys to the Congress, we just want to be able to broadcast.
Coach
Greg
Snyder's been working on that. He's been working on that. It's much better.
Jeff and Greg and I were actually on an email earlier this week talking about what that was going to look like for us on that Saturday. And then, of course, at Team State in January that you're going to be hosting. I know you and I are both excited about not having to drive somewhere on that Saturday morning and Friday night. And then I think we'll also be there for the Jet Invite the following week.
The Jet Invite, I believe, is the week right after the conference duel, or Team State duels.
Tell us a little bit about what you have planned for hosting Team State.
Yeah, so we've been, we're fortunate enough that we were asked if we could host that thing, and superintendent to the principal to athletic director was all on board. So we're going to use the hangar and the SAC field house. So we'll have 2 mats in the hangar, 4 mats in the field house. I think seating will be pretty good the way we were thinking. In the hangar, just the lower level on the one side will be for wrestlers, and we'll have chairs along the end line, 2 mats, and then the one side's all fans, and the upper deck on the other side, fans. And then down in the field house, we'll have the bleachers for fans. And we're talking about some potential drop downs on that far end that you guys are aware of, on that far end for folks if they're on those back 2 mats.
I'll tell you what, the hangar holds more people than you think it does.
We used to host sectional there back in the day.
Team regionals for wrestling?
And we hosted team regionals for several years.
That place was packed.
Yeah, that was always a great time when we hosted team regionals back when the IHSA sponsored it. So, yeah, the hangar is a nice venue. So we're working on some options to try to make it cool and exciting, so we'll see if we can pull it off. But we've hosted a lot of wrestling matches over the years, so
We're gonna
we got guys with experience at.
Did this guy have any influence kind of twisting your arms?
We're going to have to wine and dine Jeff a little bit to get some WZBD-friendly mat assignments for the first round or two when it comes to who wrestles in the hanger and who wrestles in the sack, because
you can't
I'm not about to be breaking that stuff down and taking it across the way and back and forth. But
I'll be in a crow's nest at Jay County.
You will be, and
for about the fifth time in that season.
You love it up there.
Yeah, me and the boss up in the corner.
But it is an exciting time, and I know it's hard, I'm sure, for you, and I'm sure it's even harder for you now that you're not dad. But it's hard for a wrestling coach to not just be ready to get his guys on the mat in practice. And you root for the guys, and I'm sure your heart pulls on you when you go on Friday nights. You want them to win and everything, but then you realize when you wake up on Saturday morning, like, oh, now there's
another week.
Another week of not having the guys that I really wish that I could really do something with if I had them, but they're not going to be here.
Yeah, so it's both my boys played football, and we're fortunate enough to play at Lucas Oil Stadium. So Trevor actually got to play 3 years down there for a state title. Alex won. My nephew played 2 years down there. So that experience was awesome for them. So, if it takes up the first couple of weeks of wrestling season, so be it. That experience and that opportunity is awesome for those kids, and it's something they remember, forever. So, it kind of sucks that it eats into the beginning of our season, but that's just is what it is.
Well, this football team is really good. So the first 4 weeks of the tournament did not surprise you that they were going to advance on. Right. This week, they're playing Andrean, who just knocked off the number one team in the state. Right. Could they be challenged a little bit? I don't know. I've seen this team so many times this year that I watch them in the first quarter of their night. Neither team can hang on the ball. The second quarter, they open it up, and by the second half, the other teams are just so wore down from that offense pounding at them that it's hard to keep them out of the end zone. This
team's a little different than the previous years.
Yeah.
When a couple years back, the offense was pretty explosive. They had some playmakers that could take it to the house at any time. And this team is a little more methodical. And in the second half, they wear teams down. And some of them early first halves are a little close, a little tight, and then in the second half, it just separates on the scoreboard.
Heiser's not a big back like a Hirely or a Bloom, but I tell you what, the speed between Heiser and Hershey with their size at 190, 180 apiece, those guys are bruisers, and they will outrun you where Bloom and Hirely would just run you over.
Matt Heiser is a tough kid.
Yeah.
He's a tough kid you love to have. I'm sure Michael loves him on the football field. I love him on the wrestling mat. He's a goer. He never quits. The kid, he's a goer. So, so that doesn't surprise me that he's having success. And some of these kids got stuck behind some of the seniors that graduated last year that were pretty good players. So some of these kids didn't have that varsity experience coming into this season. And a sophomore quarterback, Jamie Roach, is doing a fantastic job. A young kid there, and Michael just plugs them kids in and just keeps getting production from them.
Well, that comes to the end of our second period A section, and we'll come back with Coach Currie as we come back right after these breaks here on WZBD.
When faced with the difficult task of making arrangements for your loved one, many emotions and questions arise. What would they want me to do if they were here? Where is the money coming from? How much should I spend? Do they want burial or cremation? The staff at Haggard, Hershey, and Zelt Funeral Home can help you navigate these tough questions. Make your wishes known and allow us to make sure that your wishes are carried out. Call Ryan Hershey or Eric Zelt at 260-724-7167 to schedule an appointment today.
Brad Weber proudly supports the WZBD Wrestling Coaches Show. He also supports youth football in Adams County as a board member of the Decatur Football League and president of Belmont Cadet Football, giving our youth the chance to learn the great game of football. Some of the best football players in our area have also been fantastic wrestlers. And that's why famous coaches like Joe Gibbs and John Madden always wanted wrestlers on their team. Find out more about youth football opportunities by giving Brad a call at 452-7045 or email bw@bradweberlaw.com.
Welcome back once again to the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill, who are our hosts here at the Haggard Hershey Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly. still joined by Coach Currie, and we've got a lot of football talk. But we're talking wrestling, and that only leads into the fact that Tony's still has some quality wrestlers. We're talking about Heiser, running back. Heiser's one of those guys in a wrestling team for you that fills in. Like you said, he's one of those guys that had a great wrestling season last year. I mean, he's not flashy. He's not really overpowering, but the guy wins matches for you.
Yeah, we got a lot of kids returning. Last year we had 4 seniors in our 3 upper weights. So at 190 was Trev. And then at 215 we had McAfee and Bloom and Worm at heavyweight. So we graduated off our top 3 weight classes, and then those kids won a lot of matches over 4 years for us. So we have a big chunk of our lineup returning from those lower weights, and we just need to fill in a couple of those upper weights and get everybody kind of sorted out in the weight classes that they belong into. And, we got a handful of kids returning that have semi-state experience. Miles Carr and Beer and Duball were all in the ticket round last year. Sorgen and Byerly were semi-state qualifiers, and then we put our whole team into the regionals. So we have a lot of kids with returning that have mat experience, and have several of these kids have been working at Indiana Tech, Warrior, RTC, and
Wade is our
working at Madman. So they've put in a lot of work over the summer. So I'm excited to see those efforts pay off this winter for the kids.
Wade McClurg is our featured guest next week, I believe, and he was asking about you and said that you guys are working together on a tournament, I think, sometime soon that either you're hosting.
December.
Yeah.
Yep. We host. They had ran a tournament for a couple years, and I think New Haven had hosted it for them. And there was a scheduling conflict and something that went down that New Haven was unable to do it. So we hosted it for them last year. We're going to do it again this year. So that's December 1st. So that's the little kids. It's the Warrior Open. So Indiana Tech comes down, and they bring all their wrestlers down to referee, table help, all that stuff, concessions, admissions, and we just provide the mats and the facilities, and then they run the show on that.
And that's a great example of what a college program does, sort of trickle down to high school programs and youth programs, because Indiana Tech goes and hires Wade away from Indianapolis, and he comes up here and makes a huge difference. And I think if you look at the success that they've had and sort of the guys that they've sort of put their fingerprint on, each individual college program that you can get to have that sort of effect on your local wrestling, it's a big deal. It's hard to express to people listening just how much of an impact that Warrior program has had on guys within an hour radius from the program.
Wade's been a huge positive addition to the area, and there's a lot of kids that are taking advantage of that, that Warrior RTC program. And, we're about 45-minute drive up there, so it's not terrible. But he's put a lot of time and energy and effort into these high school kids, and even some of these middle school kids coming up. So Wade's been a great addition to the area, and he's putting in hours and hours with these kids also. So it's nice to see that paying off, and I think you saw that last year with the Leach kid and the Doster kid, and some of the area kids starting to maybe open some eyes at the state level. So hopefully that continues, and with Tim's Madman and the Hammer, or the Fort Hammers up there, just more opportunities for these kids in the area to wrestle against other kids that are serious about wrestling, and to improve their skills and show it once they get back to their high schools in the winter.
Wade's a big city guy, but I tell you what, he's really fallen into this small town community feel, and I think he really likes this small community feel. I mean, he comes in here and he's just beaming. He just loves to be on our show, and he likes to work with those kids from the small towns, the South Adams, the Adams Centrals, the Belmonts, the Columbia State guys. I mean, those guys are, I don't think in the big Marion County picture, you get that. I mean, it's more like family than it is down there. It's just a big mass of wrestlers.
Yeah, Wade's a wrestling guy, and I mean, you can tell that he's about trying to help these kids and getting them better and getting the area better. So, like I said, it's been a big positive impact on the local kids.
Now, I guess we're to the point now where I always ask you the big question about who's new to the team this year, as far as what names do we need to learn when it comes to incoming ninth graders, and who's that rabbit that you've pulled out of your hat that you've gotten out of the hallways and into your lineup or into your room, and maybe that person hasn't come yet, but tell us a little bit about who's new to your team.
Yeah, so like I said, we return, pretty much our whole lineup from 106 up to 175. So it'll be a lot of similar names there. We got a decent numbers of incoming freshmen. Max Nussbaum's probably the kid at 165, 175. That comes in. That's done a lot of summer wrestling. But yeah, you're going to see a lot of the same similar names in our lineup. It's just trying to get them in, in the weight classes and get it filled out.
Who are some of the names that are going to be up there at those top weight classes then to replace the guys that you were mentioning earlier? Who's going to be up at heavyweight and some of the others?
Yeah, so some of that, still working on a couple things. There's some football guys out there that I've been trying to target. Had a good talk with a couple of them the other night. Gavin Rumpel's a kid that's wrestled all through. He'll step in at probably 215 or heavyweight, most likely heavyweight. Ethan Funk is a kid that's got a big body that can fill in at 190, 215. 215 is probably getting a little big for him. Heiser's, it's going to depend where he comes off that football field. 175 to 190. I think he's probably a 75-pounder once it's kind of said and done. Max Carr is probably that 90-pounder body frame. So, yeah, we got some options up there. We just have to see how it all shakes out once those kids get in the room and step on the scales for the first time. Because football likes feeding them. And,
I don't know if we've ever given Coach Currie enough credit for pulling Zach Worm off the basketball court and onto the wrestling match. I remember, it would have been 3 years ago when he first told me about it. I'm like, there's no way you were able to do that. And he's like, no, I think this is actually going to happen. But the other point that I wanted to make about that conversation that you just had is I think it's hard for people to understand because maybe they're just casual listeners or they really don't attend on Friday nights. Football is a long season. Rex and I are darn near tired of football.
Yeah,
and all we do is show up on Friday nights.
They got 9 regular season games, and then 5. This will be their 5th playoff game, and if they make the state finals, that's 6 games. And then they're starting to do the scrimmages in the summer, the 7-on-7s, and when your program's successful, the coaches are in the weight room, a few times a week all summer long. And they're on the open fields. So that football season is a long season. And honestly, like I told a couple of kids, they're going to miss a third of our season, a third of the wrestling season, because November's gone. By the time I get those kids, if they play Thanksgiving weekend, I always want to give those kids time off between sports. And typically, I think a kid needs 2 weeks off, like from sport to sport, just to heal up. You talk about Keegan Bloom and Heiser. They're getting hit 30, 40 times a game between getting tackled and making tackles. Their body needs to heal. And Zach Worm banging on the line every time. A kid plays offensive tackle, defensive tackle. So emotionally, they need a break. They need to be a kid.
Well,
they need to hang out with their friends.
There's a lot of pressure to perform each week, and it's also, I think, underrated to the fact that you show up every Friday night and you don't know whether you're going to have practice on Saturday morning. And then when you do win, then you have to prepare yourself for an entire another week.
Right.
And you have to move forward again. You could be at wrestling practice on Monday. You could be back at football practice.
Yeah,
on
it's
Monday.
It's an emotional pull on those kids, and that's why I say I think they need 2 weeks between season just to emotionally recharge their batteries, physically recharge, and kind of get transitioned from the mindset of playing football games to basketball or wrestling or some of them kids swim even. But it's a quick turnaround. I mean, we're giving them less than a week break, really, because if we want to have them eligible for those conference duels, we pretty much have to get them in that next week into the room, and they're just not mentally ready for that.
And this is problems that 1A, 2A, 3A coaches have. These powerhouse schools that got 3,000 kids in their school, they got a lot to pull from. You guys got 300-400 kids in your school, half of them boys. I mean, your rosters are smaller. You just don't get that ability to have that opportunity.
Most years I have about 10 of my starters playing football. This year it's a little bit the other way, but that's a lot of kids. And your bigger schools, yes, they have kids that play football and they have kids that wrestle, but I don't think it's to the amount that the smaller schools have. Last year, my 106-pounder was on the football team. At a large 5 or 6.
Or they're
school,
not playing both sides of the ball.
Yeah, they're not right. So those kids that are athletes, and I'm recruiting athletes. I'm trying to get athletes out of the hallways. That they're playing both ways. And last year, Trevor, I think he came off the field for kick return. I think
that's probably about it.
He was, he kicked, he punted, he, Keegan Bloom missed some punting too. But I mean, it was just crazy how he was on the field the whole time.
Well, that pretty much wraps up here our second period B. Let's send it back to studio. Steve Rouse for a round of commercials. Back with more wrestling/football conversation. You're listening to High School Wrestling here on WZBD.
The 2025 Legend, the latest volume of the Belmont High School Yearbook, is on sale for a discounted price this month. Visit yearbookforever.com and buy a copy for your Belmont student for $50. This special sale price will expire at the end of November. That's yearbookforever.com to purchase your 2025 Legend, the Belmont High School Yearbook.
Renowned around the Midwest for his skills and his creative abilities, Nate Bowers and the team at Bowers Paint Studio in Decatur work with a wide range of clients, from collision repair to custom paint jobs for classic cars and motorcycles. Located on Monroe Street on the west side of Decatur, Bowers is your place for body work too, whether it's getting your ride back on the road or finally getting that classic car, the paint job you've always wanted. Stop by or give Nate a call to put the best in the business to work for you.
Welcome back once again to the Hager Hershey's High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. And we got Tony talking here, and I see that cheeseburger sitting over there waiting on him, so eventually he'll get to eat that. But go ahead.
Yeah, we've been talking so much football. We need to talk about one of our biggest supporters on the show, and that is Brad Weber and his family. And we don't want to forget Moose, like you said, but I know Brad was excited today, I'm sure, to watch Ike on ESPN+. He was wrestling up at Buffalo. I saw him at Niagara Falls earlier in the weekend, and it's so cool for the guys you're trying to recruit to show them, hey, look at these guys who are now not just playing college sports, but it's so much more than playing a sport in college. It's the travel that you get, it's the experiences that you get, all of those types of things. I'm sure Trevor's seen that with what he's seen at Hanover so far, the opportunity to play in these new venues and get to see different parts of the country. And I know Ike's loving the experience that he's getting as sort of being the guy at his weight for Purdue. But, all of those things are great recruiting tools when you say, hey, not only are you going to go to college, but you're going to be able to travel here. You're going to be able to be on TV. You're going to be able to have, we were talking about it over our meal earlier, access to nutrition specialists and
weight
training and all of those types of things to make you to be in better shape and to be a better athlete. And these are all things that can be unlocked by you participating in multiple sports and finding finding your niche.
You talk about Zach Worm. That's the kid I didn't want to tie into him last year. Now he's playing Division I football. I really don't. That kid's even bigger,
he's
stronger.
Pushing 300. He's pushing 300,
and he looks good. He's not. He looks good. He's a big, strong, athletic kid. He was a huge addition to our team, and he was always a football kid.
But you made him a better football player.
I think so. I think wrestling helps football, and I think wrestling helps football on the offensive, defensive line, and linebackers. The body position, the balance, the hand fighting. Wrestling goes hand in hand with football in that sense. And Adams Central's had a lot of very successful kids on the football field and the wrestling mat. And I think those two sports go hand in hand, especially the big boys. Those linemen, I mean, just you watch a big, strong, athletic heavyweight, most of those kids are playing football too. And just their balance, their, the push and pulling, those kids are athletes.
Well, I'll tell you what. These high school seniors, they're looking to go play a sport in college. I don't care if it's soccer. I don't care if it's wrestling. I don't care if it's football. Sports in college is a job. You have to understand, it is a job. You go there and you do a little school on the side, but they have you there, and it is your job to be an athlete. And it's wearing on you. I mean, mentally, physically. I know there's times I got on a bus in the middle of nowhere and midnight and got home, and I got up and went to school the next day. You had to go to school, and it's a job.
It's a commitment. And, kids that are looking at playing football or wrestling at the next level, I always tell them, you have to be committed to this. You can't be wishy-washy. You can't be, 50-50 about it. You have to be all in. And, I don't want to talk out of line, but, I was talking with Tim Myers about Duke up at Michigan State, and he was telling me he's loving it up there. And he's with other kids that have the mindset that Duke has, that loves wrestling, wants to wrestle, can't get enough wrestling, thinks about it, eats it, breathes it.
And what the other thing that he told me when I saw him last weekend, he told me, Mr. Fuelling, I've never loved school as much as I've loved it now. I love going to class. And I love the wrestling side of it things because I think it's making him a better student because he's got a better balance.
Duke's always been a good kid. He grew up with my boys too, playing ball. And, our wives were best friends growing up. So, we've known, those kids since they were little. But, Duke has been, a wrestler through and through. And I'm excited for him and glad for him that he's in a situation that he's enjoying it and succeeding and flourishing like he is and enjoying it like he is because, from what I was told, he's really enjoying it and having a good time with it. And if that's the case, that kid is going to improve leaps and bounds over how good he already was. So that's exciting to see.
I think what kids find out when they get to college is you go to high school, 8 o'clock, you're in class. You go to class. End of the day, you go. College, you may have a class that starts at 11 o'clock in the morning. You change your schedule around. It's more like a job then. It's not like, okay, I got to get up at 8 o'clock every single day. Some days you're up at 8 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some days, but it's way different. I mean, it's different. So we've ended this segment here. Let's send it back to the studio for a round of commercials, and we'll be back with more high school wrestling talk here on WZBD.
Hello, this is Joel from your local hometown Package Liquors. Package Liquors provides the best selection of domestic, import, and craft beers in Z-Land. With locations in Decatur, Monroe, Bern, and Markle, you're always just a short drive away from picking up the perfect last-minute gift or just the right six-pack to watch the game with friends. You're never a stranger when you walk through the doors, and our smiling staff never has a problem giving you a recommendation when you're not sure what it is you need. Stop in at one of our 4 locations and see what hometown service looks like. Package Liquors. It's where your friends shop.
The staff at Haggard, Hershey, and Zelt Funeral Home is honored to serve the community we love and live in. Locally owned and operated by Ryan Hershey and Eric Zelt, we understand that each family we serve and each life lived tells a unique story. Our goal is to offer comfort, care, and dignity to all who entrust their loved ones to our care. We are proud to call Adams County our home and look forward to serving you for generations to come.
Welcome back once again to the Double Eagle Clubhouse Thrill for the live edition of the Hager Hershey Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly. And we saw our good friend Ryan Hershey the other night, and he said he might try and make it out. He was here a couple weeks ago and really enjoys the show. And I tell you what, one of the guys that is probably the most proud of this program is Ryan, because he stepped up and he said his dad always told him, it's like, if you're going to do something big. And, you know, they stepped up and are our host sponsor and have been since day one. And I tell you what, it's just went to the point where you and I could never dream it'd be as big as it is right now. And he's really glad that he and Mr. Zelt are part of that.
Yeah, and it kind of falls in line with what WZBD has done with Adams Central Wrestling. I don't know what year we are, Tony, and being sort of a full broadcaster for you guys, if it's year 3 or 4 or 5, I don't remember. But taking a look at our broadcast schedule, it's basically your entire schedule outside of your trip to Lafayette Jeff. And I know last year we were lucky enough to bring Kristen along with us to Lafayette, where she was able to provide updates and scores and pictures. So essentially, we were able to follow you all the way around. But I know we have your match when you wrestle Norwell on that very first match, and then we've got the ACAC duels. And Greg Snyder willing, we should be able to bring you what I think are the most important duels of that day. Some of them will be on radio, some will be on YouTube. And then after that, you've got your what seems like a classic now with New Haven in mid-December. And then, of course, that always precedes you wrestling Columbia City, which has been a great duel since you added it, since you went to the conference duels format. And then I've really enjoyed, I don't know how many years in a row I've been there now, 4 or 5 years of covering you guys that Yorktown New Haven Super 10. There have been some great matches last year wrestling McConaughey and Avon.
Yep, that was a good duel.
Was a great duel last year, and WZBD will be back at Yorktown to cover you guys as the schedule fits in there. And then, of course, we will have the first broadcast of 2025 now, it looks like, as Belmont wrestles Adams Central on January 2nd.
Yeah, that duel has been switched a couple times due to scheduling. But, yeah, you talk about it's just great for the kids. And we got some younger kids that are coming up, and we got to get some of our weights sorted out. But, Mav Dubal is going to be one of the kids that's going to be a solid, anchor in the middle of our lineup. And Brayson Sorgen and Clay Beard down low. Max Byerly, kind of had a run that got him to semi-state last year. So these kids put in a ton of work, a ton of practicing, and so it's nice to see them be recognized, through coverage of the media that we have in our county. So it's nice for those kids.
I bought a lot of corn off Brayson this summer.
Yeah. Sorgen, that kid's a hard worker. He's always out doing something. So we got good kids. Dylan Olds, another kid that's going to be right there in the middle of our lineup. So we got a nice core group of kids in that middle of that lineup, and we just got to get them kind of all in there and get to the weight class that's best for them.
And one thing that I think I've learned in the last 4 or 5 years from getting more and more involved in your program is there really is a lot of support. I know you and I have talked before about Disney in the summer and some other things that you've done, but as someone who has to go around and really literally sell your team to businesses, it's not a hard sell, because there are people who are really excited about what you do on the mat and in the practice room, and when I go to some of those people and ask them, hey, are you in for another year? They're like, absolutely. We want to support the team, and we want to follow them.
We have a lot of we have great community support, and there's a lot of smaller businesses in the community that have wrestling ties. Xander Schwartz is a kid that's in the middle of our lineup that came along really well last year as a freshman. He's going to be a sophomore this year. And his dad, Dan, runs his own business and has been as supportive as can be. Cashton Reynolds' dad, Shane, has been fantastic to us. He runs his own business out there, refurbishing.
Well, they're big supporters of our show, too. And I actually talked to his mom, and I said, hey, do you want to be in on the football game this week? She
Nate
said,
Bowers.
Why did you call me last week, she said.
Nate Bowers Paint. And,
yep.
I hate starting to talk about these guys because I know I'm going to miss somebody.
Landon Genth is another one who's a big supporter of what you guys do.
The only difference is Landon texts me about 10 times during every event. So.
Brett Miller at Miller Land Surveying, Jeremy Ringer at Wygand Construction.
Wygand's been great to
us.
A
new one that's come on board for us this year is Jared Schwartz, who runs a trucking company up in New Haven. Got involved with volleyball this year.
Classic coach?
Pampered coach.
Pampered coach,
And he said something
about
former
wrestlers.
Hey, can I get in on wrestling? I want to support Adams Central Wrestling, and said absolutely.
Jared's a great kid. He's starting to get kids. His kids are starting to get into the youth sports, so it's going to be great to see Jared come back around.
So Dane, you talked about bringing Tony and the Adams Central Flying Jets on. We have almost a full South Adams schedule as well.
Yeah, and those sponsors have stepped up too, and they want to be able to hear. And I think the big thing for us in the last couple of years has been finding those away matches where only a certain percentage of people are going to be able to attend those. And when it comes to home matches, a lot of the people who really want to be there show up in person, and that's what you want to see, not listen on the radio. But when it comes to those away matches, when WZBD is able to bring them, and our list is far and wide. My travel schedule in December and January includes Cowan and Delta and Columbia City and Yorktown and all of those places. And
South Adams gets great support from their community as well. And Jesse, the last few years, and now Sawyer, I'm sure it's going to continue. But Burns supports the South Adams athletes, in a great way, and I'm sure they're going to have sponsors and step up.
And I think one of the great things for WZBD, and that's something that Dane and I kind of worked on, started throwing ideas around, and we went and got with Dave Nathan, and we found the technology in our YouTube channel. We've had so much success in our YouTube channel. We'll do an event, and it's like nobody's going to listen to that. I did the girls' dual meet between New Haven and Columbia City, and it's like nobody's going to listen to that. 150 people had listened to that the next day. It's like, we were at the football game at Adams Central. There's other media there. We're pulling 600 views on that game. Should we have had 600 views? I don't know, but we did.
And you do have some diehard fans who will eat up any content that we put out there, and it doesn't really matter what it is. And I think that's kind of what makes our job enjoyable. There is not an Adams Central game or event that I cover where Margie Tebow doesn't text me that day. And I know she's listening because she'll comment on something that we say on air. I mean, she's adamant. And I think a lot of people sort of discount sometimes how many people are actually following your team and how much it means to them.
She's the true blue fan all
because
the way through.
There are some people out there that you don't realize that are out there that maybe don't show their face or maybe they're following from a distance, but they really do care about what you guys do on the mat.
There is a lot. I mean, the history and traditions there. And, some folks that maybe don't live in the area anymore or, for health reasons can't get out and get to the matches like they used to. There's a ton of support. We're fortunate at Adams Central and fortunate in the wrestling room that we have anytime we've needed something. You talk about sponsors or support or however you want to lay it out. Anytime we've needed something, it's a couple phone calls or it's a couple text messages, and we basically have what we need. So that's fantastic for the kids.
One last question for you. Do you have any changes to your coaching staff this year? Anything different? Anybody new?
It's going to be most of the same guys. I don't think we have any major changes.
Well, Coach, I know over the last couple of years, and as we were just talking about the changes that WZB has made, I've always felt welcome walking into your coach's office. Always felt welcome when you guys are hosting matches, and always appreciated the interviews and the access to your team. And we're certainly looking forward to another great season whenever it is that you finally get on the mat.
Yep. Well, thank you. And, that's what I hate when I start naming names because I know I'm going to forget somebody. So I hope I didn't, forget a kid. I hope I didn't forget a sponsor. When you get put on the spot and you're trying to think of these things off the top of your head. So I just want to thank all those folks that do support us, and I apologize if I miss somebody. I know there's going to be somebody, but appreciate the support from WZBD and you guys for giving our kids the recognition that they deserve.
And I think one of the things that people forget about, all the behind-the-scenes work that this guy does and Dave Nathan does to make our website what it is, because those kids go back to that website a lot, listen to the interviews. You can go back and listen to the whole game. I mean, that's where you see a lot of our YouTube hits come up. On the way home, they're listening to the game on the way home and we'll see overnight, you'll see a bunch of hits come onto it. And it's just the technology that we've been able to come along with. And sitting right over there, Dane, maybe some more technology for you. Brought that in tonight. With that,
I know.
We'll work on that. But with that, let's send it back to studio for a final break with Steve Rouse. We'll be back with our final segment in overtime right after this on WZBD.
Does your smile need work? Maybe it's time for a cleaning and exam. Visit Laura Kugelhahn, DDS, and her knowledgeable, caring staff at Complete Smiles on North Main Street in Bluffton. Dr. Kugelhahn would love to help you maintain your dental health or transform your smile. Whatever your needs might be, Complete Smiles is there to help you. Dr. Kugelhahn is currently accepting new patients. Call 824-3100 to schedule an appointment. Based out of the Indiana Tech Wrestling Facility, the Warrior Regional Training Center is an elite training center for youth wrestlers, high school wrestlers, and college and senior level athletes. Featuring a college coaching staff with a strong history of developing talent and producing results, Warrior RTC will give any wrestler quality training partners to push them to new levels in the state-of-the-art 25,000 square foot wrestling building. The training is affordable and private training is also available. Put Warrior RTC in your corner this season.
For the Haggard Hershey's High School Wrestling Weekly, and Dane, technology goes south because my mother was listening. I don't know if she's in North Carolina or Florida. She was one of the two, but she was listening to both football games, one on YouTube and one on the radio.
Well, I am excited. We were talking about the schedule. We'll wrap that up, then we'll talk about what's happening on WZBD the rest of the week. I am excited that Adams Central match with Belmont got moved to January 2nd because you are going to be at the girls wrestling regional at Muncie Central.
Okay, you tell me so.
It was going to be on the same day. You're going to have to hurry back from the field house and make your way up to Monroe. And now we'll be able to do that match on Thursday, January 2nd, as the Braves take on Adams Central. Now, one thing we did not talk about prior, and Coach Currie hasn't given me any stick for yet, is the preseason rankings. But we'll save that for another show. Coach Currie sometimes not appreciative of the big bullseye on the back of his team sometimes.
Not a fan.
You haven't even wrestled. You're already ranked number one.
Yeah, not a fan of that.
We will, of course, have every Adams Central match wrestled at Team State, as we've done the last couple of years. And, of course, that'll be in Monroe this year. We're excited about that. But we'll also have our microphones at Delta for their dual meet there. And, of course, we'll have the ACAC tournament on January 24th, and then the entire state series all season long.
We're on like every night, aren't we, Dane?
It sure feels like it.
I thought that's
get some clones made of us.
It felt bad during volleyball and football season at the same time because we threw soccer in there. We had volleyball, soccer, and football all going at the same time. And my wife told me, "Oh, you had a big check show up." I was like, well, she was hiding it from me. So that was a big month, a big week.
Now, this coming week, taking a look at the schedule, we will have the Pacers tomorrow night as they play in Canada against Toronto. And then on Tuesday, we've got a big game for the Boilermakers as they play at Marquette up in Wisconsin. Then on Wednesday, we'll have the Purdue football coaches show for radio. And then later after that, it will be the Pacers as they take on Houston. And then Thursday, we give Steve a night off. So listen to some smooth jazz and some classic rock and
song singers and bands.
He was telling me all about some of the nuances that go into.
Wednesday is giggle night.
Well, no, this is Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Thursday night, there's no sporting events. Maybe I'll just schedule one just to make it worth it. Now, Friday night, just to make sure everybody's clear, we are going to cover Wawasee and Belmont boys wrestling we're going to go on air as soon as we can. We're going to do as much pre-match as we can, some interviews, try to do all the JV matches and as many varsity matches as we can. We're going to stay on YouTube, but the 92.7 feed will switch over to Rex at Andrean for the Adams Central game. You'll be able to hear the entire Adams Central game on air on 92.7 until its completion. You'll be able to hear the entire South Adams game on our YouTube channel, Ed Thurman and Dave Nathan doing that game. If Adams Central were to finish first, maybe we'll be able to hear the end of the South Adams game. But then that also means that we're going to be pushing the Purdue football game to early Saturday morning because we have Purdue basketball at noon on Saturday, and then we've got alumni night for Belmont girls basketball. They've got big things planned for that. If you are a fan of the girls basketball programs at Heritage or Belmont, definitely worth checking out. This Belmont team is really good. That is on Saturday night. We will have that broadcast for you somewhere around 7 or 7:15. Then next Sunday, we've got Indianapolis hosting the best team in the NFL. And sorry, I didn't mean to offend Coach Currie as a Chiefs fan on a tough day. But the Detroit Lions come into Indianapolis. Pregame starting at noon, kickoff at 1, and then we'll have our show on Sunday at 7 o'clock. Wade McClurg is our featured guest on the 24th, and we'll preview the Belmont and Snyder match. We will talk about the Belmont-Wawasee match, and we'll preview hopefully a couple of state finals football games, along with what Belmont will face when they head to Goshen after Thanksgiving.
Well, Tony, we appreciate you coming in, sitting and talking with us, and I'm certain if you go talk to the guys in the kitchen, they can throw that burger into the steamer for you and warm it up. But it's always a great time talking here, and not a huge crowd out here tonight, but we'd like to thank everybody that did come out. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, and most of all, thank Steve Rouse for running the board as he does on Sunday night here. And we appreciate all the fans that do listen to us each week. And with that, that's another wrap here on the Hager Hershey High School Wrestling Weekly on WZBD.